On September 6, due to heavy rainfall, three main tributaries in the Yangtze River's upper reaches experienced major flooding. They are the Minjiang Tuojiang and Jialing Rivers. Due to the increase of water from the upper reaches and drainage basins, the inflow of the Three Gorges Reservoir rose rapidly. At 2 p.m. on the 6th, the inflow rate reached 54,000 cubic meters per second, the first flood that exceeded 50,000 cubic meters per second this year. According to the National Flood Numbering Regulations for major rivers, the flood has reached the numbering standard, thus the Yangtze River No. 1 flood was formed in the upper reaches. At 8 a.m. on September 6, the water level at Luoduxi Station on the Tuojiang River rose to 219.29 meters, 0.29 meters above the warning level. Tuojiang is a main tributary of the Jialing River, and the Jialing River is a main tributary of the Yangtze River. The water level of Tuojiang has reached the Jialing River flood numbering standard. The Yangtze River Water Resources Commission thus announced that the Jialing River No. 2 flood was formed in the Tuojiang River. According to the real-time data of the Commission, the highest water level of 183.9 meters appeared at 11 a.m. on September 7th at the Ciqikou station of the Jialing River, exceeding the warning level by 2.9 meters. The highest water level of 180.8 meters appeared at 5 a.m. on the 7th at Chuntan station of the Yangtze River, exceeding the warning level by 0.3 meters. The Jialing River is a tributary of the upper reaches of the Yangtze River and joins the Yangtze River in the Chaotianmen district of Chongqing City. Two numbered floods formed on the Yangtze River and Jialing River at the same time, and they passed through Chongqing almost at the same time as well, resulting in the largest flood in Chongqing this year. At 11 a.m. on September 6, the Chongqing Flood Control and Drought Relief Headquarters upgraded the early warnings of river floods, mountain floods, and waterlogging disasters to a third level or yellow warning, and upgraded the fourth level emergency response for flood control to third level. It is reported that the Yangtze River flood No. 1 has affected 11 low areas along the river in Chongqing, including Jiangjin, Yongchuan, Yuzhong, Jiangbei, Yubei, and Shapingba areas. The Chongqing Water Resources Bureau has urgently requested the Yangtze River Water Resources Commission to conduct joint scheduling of flood release of the Three Gorges and other reservoirs downstream. Increase the Three Gorges Reservoir discharge flow rate, lower the water level in front of the dam to reduce the flood control pressure in Chongqing. At the same time, the Bureau also requested upstream reservoirs such as Xiluodu, Xiangjiaba, Tingzikou, and others to store the floodwater in order to mitigate the chaos in Chongqing. With the arrival of the No. 2 flood on the Jialing River, the water level at Ciqikou Station increased on September 6. At 2 p.m., the water had risen to the platform of Yinglongmen Archway, with a level of 182.7 meters. Some stores along the river in the town have been flooded, and merchants were evacuated urgently. In an interview with local media, a restaurant owner said that they experience such emergency evacuations every year. A total of 4 to 5 hours is needed to move all the items in the restaurant to higher ground. The flood peak of the Tuojiang River reached the urban area of Chu County at 1:20 p.m. on the 6th, with a water level of 248.57 meters, exceeding the warning level by 1.76 meters. Chu County was seriously affected after the flood passed. According to the Chu County Flood Control and Drought Relief Headquarters, as of 11 a.m. on September 6, 16 towns had reported their situations. The affected population was 6,676. 10 houses collapsed, 107 houses were damaged, and 156 hectares of crops were affected. 4 pond dams collapsed, 691 shops and 600 meters of roads were damaged. 82 rescue teams with 580 people were dispatched. Dazhou City, which has been hit by several floods before, suffered flood again on September 6. The raging waters flooded the first floor overnight, and merchants moved out urgently and suffered severe damage. They said that they had moved 6 times in less than 2 months. On September 5th, several landslides occurred in Dazhou town of Dazhou City, Sichuan province. There are no casualties for the time being, and the extent of damages is still being calculated. In Bazhong City, Sichuan Province, when the flood struck so suddenly, a man was still working on a tower crane, and people hurried to rescue him. Let's take a look at the Three Gorges Dam. To cope with the upcoming flood peak, the dam opened one gate for flood discharge at 7 p.m. on September 6, with a discharge rate of 26,000 cubic meters per second. 1 hour later, the Three Gorges Reservoir experienced a maximum inflow of 55,000 cubic meters per second, which gradually decreased thereafter. On September 7th, the dam opened 3 gates to release water. As of 2 p.m., the inflow and outflow rates of the Three Gorges Reservoir were 54,000 and 31,300 cubic meters per second, respectively. The water level was 166.25 meters, exceeding the 145-meter flood limit by 21.25 meters. At 10 a.m. on September 6, the Yangtze River Water Resources Commission upgraded the flood warning level and issued an orange warning for the Jialing River, a yellow warning for the Chuntan section of the Yangtze River, and a blue warning for the Three Gorges Reservoir. Some professionals analyze that the flood control function of the Three Gorges Dam is currently being challenged. The flood control pressure of Chongqing requires the Three Gorges Dam to discharge floods as soon as possible to lower the water level in front of the dam. However, the Wuhan area, which is located downstream of the dam, is currently under great pressure for flood control, because floods from the Minjiang River are rushing in. The Minjiang River, one of the main tributaries of the Yangtze River, merges into the Yangtze River in Wuhan. Affected by heavy rainfall, the river has been flooded for several days. Now the water level in the downstream reaches of the Minjiang River is over warning level, and the subsequent floods in the upper reaches will arrive soon. Wuhan's situation requires the Three Gorges Dam not to discharge too much. Therefore, the flood discharge of the Three Gorges Dam must take upstream Chongqing and downstream Wuhan flooding situations into consideration together, which is actually the Minjiang River is the longest tributary of the Yangtze River, which is located on the north bank of the middle reaches of the Yangtze River. It originates from the southern foot of the Qinling Mountains in Shanxi Province. The main stream of this river flows from west to east through southern Shanxi and Hubei Province, and joins the Yangtze River at Hankou in Wuhan. It is 1,577 kilometers long and has a basin area of 159,000 square kilometers. According to local media reports, on September 6, the water levels of 1,397 kilometers of the Minjiang River embankment exceeded the flood protection stage, of which 543 kilometers exceeded the warning level. Cities and counties along the Minjiang River had launched emergency flood control responses, of which Hanchuan, Xiangcheng, and Xiangzhou launched Level 2 flood control emergency response. The Danjiangkou Reservoir is located in the upper reaches of the Minjiang River, which is the water source of the central line of the South to North Water Transfer Project. At 1 a.m. on September 7th, the water level of Danjiangkou Reservoir broke the record of 167 meters, the highest water level in history. As of 1 p.m. on the same day, the water level of Danjiangkou reached 167.46 meters, exceeding the flood limit by 3.96 meters. At present, the reservoir has opened 7 gates to discharge. The inflow rate of the reservoir is 12,400 cubic meters per second, and the outflow rate is 10,100 cubic meters per second, which is the largest outbound flow in 10 years since 2011. This year, the inflow at Danjiangkou Reservoir occurred at an earlier time, more frequently, and in larger amounts and longer durations. There have been 6 floods with flood peaks greater than 5,000 cubic meters per second, 4 of which happened in mid to late August. In the early morning of August 30th, the incoming flood peak of Danjiangkou Reservoir reached 23,400 cubic meters per second, the highest it's been in the past 10 years. The continuous flooding in the upstream led to the continuous high water level in the middle and lower reaches of the Hanjiang River, and the duration was long. The embankments on both banks of the Hanjiang River were soaked by high water levels for a long time, and the risk of underlying erosion and failure increased. As we introduced in the last video, the Eping hydropower station in Hubei province, which was in the upstream of Danjiangkou Reservoir, had a dangerous situation on September 1st. Due to the long time and high-intensity flood discharge, its spillway end was destroyed, and a large washout pit was formed at the bottom of the dam. Meanwhile, the rock body on the right bank of the spillway collapsed and was caved in. Although the washout pit had been backfilled, the collapse had not been repaired, posing a threat to the safety of the dam. On the morning of September 5th, the ancient town of Shuhe in Xunyang County, Shanxi Province, was hit by heavy rainfall and sudden mudslides. Since the early morning of September 6th, due to the flood discharge from the hydropower stations at the upper reaches of the Hanjiang River, Shuhe has seen a peak flow of 12,000 cubic meters per second. It is reported that when the flood peak arrived, some streets were partially flooded. 900 meters of Jizhen Street were submerged. The floodwater entered some shops with depths of more than 1 meter. A 5-story residential building collapsed from the mudslide. Residents had been evacuated in advance, so there were no casualties. Since August 22nd, Shuhe town has experienced 3 floods, and local residents were seriously affected. Henan Provincial Bureau of Hydrology and Water Resources announced that, on September 6th, due to the early rainfall and upstream reservoir discharge, the water level of many rivers have exceeded the warning level. Currently, water levels of 9 large and 31 medium-sized reservoirs in the province have exceeded the flood limit. The 9 large reservoirs include Shimantan, Zhaopingtai, Baiguishan, and Luzhitan. These reservoirs are currently discharging, and local residents are seriously affected.